Mosaic is delighted to work with ASOTU to bring you the latest information concerning the FTC CARS rule. Mosaic is a full-service compliance resource for both franchised and independent car dealers, as well as RV, power sport, and marine dealerships. We cover the waterfront from policy development to training, certification, safeguards, fixed ops, and audit services to create an effective compliance management system. More on that later, but first, let's get down to business.
Hey everyone, welcome back for an ASOTU Edge webinar. As you heard from Jim, we're going to be talking about the CARS rule today. Not too exciting, but definitely very important. We're going to be hearing first from Paul J. Daly and Kyle Mountsier. We're going to get started on that topic just a little bit, and then we're going to hear from Jim Ganther, Esquire, and founder and CEO of Mosaic Compliance Services. So I'm going to kick it on over to them. Y'all enjoy.
What's up?
Yo, we in the webinar.
Okay, here's the fun thing about an ASOTU Edge live webinar is that it's truly live. And that I'm truly right now typing a message in the LinkedIn that says, join us right now for the CARS Rule webinar with James Ganther, who has been drinking Red Bull in the green room for the last 3 hours.
Crushing Red Bull. I mean, this guy is ready to go. It's like, if you thought the CARS Rule wasn't exciting, you are wrong. This is the exciting version of the CARS Rule for sure. Paul, I'm telling you what, this is the CARS Rule kind of like went silent. We'll probably get into that a little bit today, but it kind of went silent for a little bit of time.
Actually, it started the day we were in Washington, D.C. with Jim and Mike Stanton, and the stay was issued, was when everyone just like it disappeared out of the news.
Poof, right? So roll back, I guess, 6 months before that. It's about a year ago now, and we are, hearing and administering open comments on the FTC docs, and there is a ton going on in the media network about what is going to come of this new legislation and even regulation.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean for dealers? Dealers kind of pushing back. Dealer Rater getting in saying, hey, look, the dealers aren't as bad as everybody like puts them out to be in the cultural perspective. And still just coming to a head, like this thing isn't going away.
Yeah. So just to give you a little overview, this is definitely the most comprehensive and significant set of federal regulations ever introduced into the retail auto industry. More than right now, 370 pages of published regulations. That's a couple.
They're sneaking some stuff in there. I'm just calling it.
Or ChatGPT is sneaking some stuff in there. How do we know this? The FTC started work on this back in 2022. Actually, this is the first time ASOTU is actually cited in a public comment to the FTC. We're part of the National Archive, I guess, at this point. Basically, it was, if you're curious, page 16, footnote 54. Says the dealer-rated data reference in the text was discussed by officials from the company during a podcast conducted September 8th, 2022. Special guest Jamie Oldershaw at Dealer Rater. And, we're in there. So there's a link and everything. So we're excited about that.
We're in the history books, but
we have the expert
books are less studied by us typically. They're studied by those that actually read them. They read the documents, people that are willing to go through the pain of reading legalese and drawing out all the conclusions that we need to have as an industry to both rebut, but also act on things that are coming down the pipe. And one of those people is our man, Jim Ganther. So we should stop talking because we probably said stuff that would put our foot in our mouth already in the show.
Well, it's because the sun is up. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and bring Jim up and get the real authority on it. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm sorry I missed the dress code. I didn't have a clean t-shirt, so I had to put on a bow tie.
Come on, you're in Bermuda shorts right now.
Notice how high this camera is.
Yeah, exactly. No, Jim, always looking good and ready, definitely dressed to match the part. So give us an idea. For the people that may just kind of be coming into the conversation, can you summarize the CARS rule and why it was created in the first place?
Can I summarize the CARS rule? This is the CARS rule.
Is that legit? The 370 pages or whatever?
This is, it's actually a little bit more than that. I've got over 400 pages in that binder. and I've got a much thicker binder, a set of binders with all of the briefs in the lawsuit. But let's get back to your question. Where did this rule come from? If you go back 3 years, April of 2021, the Supreme Court issued a 9-0 decision against the Federal Trade Commission. The case was called AMG Capital Management versus the Federal Trade Commission. And in that case, AMG Capital Management, which was, I understand, a payday loan company, had been doing some very, very bad things. And for all I know, they actually did them. But here's the problem. They were assessed a fine under the Trump administration of $1.27 billion. To my knowledge, that's the biggest consumer fine ever assessed in the history of the universe. It wound up boomeranging on the Federal Trade Commission, and here is why. If you get fined $1 million, you just pay the $1 million, because it costs more than that to appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court.
Right.
But if you get fined $1.27 billion, you cannot afford not to take it all the way to the Supreme Court, and they did. And in a stunning, the Supreme Court can't agree what day of the week it is, 9/0, but they could agree that the Federal Trade Commission did not have a statutory basis to assess monetary fines in the first instance. All they were statutorily authorized to do was get injunctive relief, an injunction, and if the bad actor violated the injunction, then you could assess fines. So in other words, all you can get right out of the box is a free bite of the apple and a slap on the wrist.
Firm slap on the wrist. That's it. Yeah.
So the Supreme said you cannot fine anyone unless it's in violation of an actual trade regulation rule. Well, the CARS rule is that trade regulation rule. They took every bad act that they've been fining people for the last 50 years, and they formally defined it as being a deceptive trade practice. And once that rule was issued, they would have the ability to assess monetary fines. That's how this all began.
So is it just about putting the existing regulations into a finable position for the FTC, or is there more to it than that?
If only. Because if all the FTC wanted to do was actually formally establish their authority to assess fines, which they've been doing for the last 50 years. Everybody kind of assumed they had the authority, other than me, but I had to wait a long time to be proven right. That would have been really no big deal, but they didn't stop there. They got greedy. They established the right to assess fines. Currently, $51,744 per violation, and that goes up every January, adjusted for inflation. But they went farther than that. They wanted to formally restructure how cars are sold in the United States, how ads are produced, how the entire thing is documented. And it just became very, very convoluted and very difficult to even understand what it was they wanted our industry to do, because I don't write federal regulations and they don't sell cars. And it kind of shows that they're trying to regulate something they do not fully understand. And one last thing I would say about the rule is that it was, to me, unfairly narrow. What went out as the retail automotive trade regulation rule was published as CARS, Combating Automotive Retail Scams, which insinuates that all car dealers are scam artists, which is not fair and not true. But it specifically excludes RV dealers, power sport dealers, marine dealers. So by implication, payment packing apparently is okay at an RV store. That's absurd. Yeah. Why are you saying these are bad things, but only in the automotive context? So yeah, there's been a lot of ire raised by this process.
Well, we'll get to a few of the specific details that maybe dealers should be paying most attention to, but I want to address before we do that just why maybe we were getting kind of the hot and heavy, like everything's coming at us. It's going to change. Everybody's trying to change everything. And then we've kind of had this release valve for just a few months now. What's the reason for the release valve, and what's the turn happening as we head into the fall?
Great question. In the first week of January, when the rule was published, it was the sky is falling, everybody get into full panic mode. We only have 7 months to come into compliance with a very complicated rule. But the next day, NADA, National Automobile Dealers Association, filed a review of that rule in conjunction with TADA, Texas Auto Dealers Association. That helped them establish jurisdiction in the Fifth Circuit, which includes Texas, a much better place to be than in the Eastern District of Virginia or the DC Circuit. So the lawsuit was filed first part of January. And on the 18th of January, when I was with you guys at Policy Day, the Washington Auto Show, that's where we found out that the FTC on its own hook stayed enforcement of the rule, which was odd because they originally opposed staying enforcement of the rule. So they contradicted themselves on the day that they were required to file their response brief to NADA, TADA lawsuit, leading us to believe they sensed that there was some weakness in their legal position. And if NADA, TADA had won at the preliminary injunction level, that would have required a finding that they were substantially likely to prevail on the merits. And that was a risk that the FTC simply couldn't take.
Yeah.
Wow.
So enforcement is postponed until the Fifth Circuit disposes of the case. Briefing happened until mid-June. In fact, my company did participate in the lawsuit as amicus. Here's our brief. We weighed in on the topic of whether or not the rule would cost dealers $0 to comply with. Remember, I had a compliance company. This is something I know intimately well, but the court does not. And so we volunteered to actually write the brief. I mean, we had Wiley Ryan, the law firm in DC, do all the legal work, but we did have to do the writing for the factual basis, which I enjoyed doing. I haven't done that in a few years, decades. So we filed a brief explaining that this is going to be expensive, and it will be. Let me pause for a moment. I would like to shout out those who joined us on the brief and help pay for it, and more significantly, put their names and their reputations on the line.
It's a big deal.
Everybody seemed afraid that there would be a whack-a-mole if you went on record opposing the FTC, that they might turn their guns on you. These companies had the courage to say, who cares? APCO Holdings, Ascent Dealer Services, Auto Advisory Services, Automotive Compliance Education, Brightline Dealer Advisors, IA, American Warranty Group, and Portfolio Holdings. I very much appreciate their financial and moral support.
I know
wish we had
just
an
a couple
applause
few of
button.
those people. They're great. Yeah.
Hit
Hit that applause button for that crew. Let's go.
Hit the applause button. Briefing concluded in the middle of June. Since then, we got a panel established. They scheduled oral argument for the week of the 7th of October. That's coming up. I hope to be there. And then we can probably expect a decision from the Federal Trade Commission, I'm guessing by Thanksgiving. That would be relatively brisk, but I think it's possible. My bet is we'll hear about it by the end of the year, and I'm hoping before December.
Wow. So what comes of that briefing? Like what's the kind of expectation from all of the people that are a part of that, are a part of the arguments? And then how should dealers, if we know kind of like the basis or what things are headed toward based on the conversation, how can dealers continue to prepare, and what should they expect over the next 6 to 7 months as far as communication?
We're reading tea leaves here. What you're about to hear from my mouth is my best
speculation,
guess, and it is only a guess, but we've worked real hard over the last 7 months to make it an informed guess. There are really only two possibilities at the Fifth Circuit. The FTC wins or the FTC loses. Let's consider what happens if the FTC wins. NADA made some excellent arguments that the FTC did not follow its own process in establishing the rule, and therefore it should be thrown out. But let's just say the FTC overcomes that. They will establish a compliance date, which I would expect will be 6 or 7 months out, because that's how much time they gave us at the beginning of the year. So it's reasonable to believe they'll give us that much time in compliance, which brings us almost to a year from right now. But it's going to be enforced as it is currently written. I will say that's probably not enough time for your DMSs to reprogram your DMSs of the Reynolds and the CDKs of the world, to reprogram the DMSs to adjust what they have to calculate and display, and all of the documents that might have to reflect an expanded definition of offering price. Those all have to be rewritten, and it's a massive job that I don't know is physically possible in 6 months. Your product providers will probably have to edit all of their gap forms, service contract forms, et cetera, to give themselves a little bit more protection. And nobody's talked about this yet, but I'm predicting that if the FTC wins, all of your lender agreements with all of your finance sources, your captives, Capital One, et cetera, the bar for suing the lenders just dropped precipitously.
Oh boy.
And the amount of money for which they can be sued is going through the ceiling. So I suspect all of your lender agreements are going to get an amendment saying, if you screw up, Mr. Dealer,
it's on
you
you.
Get sued under the holder in due course rule, we want indemnification. And that is a very, very big deal. What if the FTC? So what if the FTC loses? If the FTC loses, really all we've done is we've bought some time, because they still have the ability to go back, correct procedural defects. And for all I know, they're doing that as we speak. If NADA said you didn't have a proper economic analysis, you can believe
they're doing a proper economic analysis.
And, December 1st, funny thing, guess what just showed up? We've got our economic analysis.
Merry Christmas.
But buying time is itself extraordinarily valuable, because there is the possibility of a change of administration.
I was just going to ask that question. How does that potentially affect all of this?
If Harris, Waltz win, nothing changes. We're not going to see, there's not going to be a change in majority on the Federal Trade Commission. We have no reason to believe we're going to get any relief whatsoever. But by the same token, if Trump, Vance get elected, that's not a guarantee that the CARS rule is going to go away. Does Trump want to spend political capital appearing to work against the interest of the American consumer? I don't think so. I think the best thing we could expect with a change of administration is significant, but it may not necessarily mean we're going to get rid of the CARS rule. The things that the CARS rule was supposed to fix, I think those parts are going to survive, and it's only a matter of time before they become the law. And what that means is, what should a dealer do?
Yeah. Now, like what?
Yeah.
Because
so what
you
do we do?
Laid out a bunch of things that may potentially happen,
and that's only on the finance side. You haven't even all of the ads and the ad copy,
sales
and
process,
the marketing, and all of that type of stuff that is bundled into this as well, right?
Correct. You brought up ads. Excellent topic, because again, the Federal Trade Commission has never sold a car and never had to build an ad. To be fair, neither have I. But I talk to people who do that. And I've been told by people who do ads for car dealers that it's literally physically impossible to meet all of these new requirements. You're not allowed to have fine print, which is fine. You're not allowed to have click-throughs to get additional information or a more thorough explanation. So everything has to be crammed into a very short ad, or visually on a website into a screen that literally cannot accommodate all of that information the way the FTC wants it presented. That is one thing I want to see excised from this rule. It's just silly. keeping.
There's no other industry that has to do that either. That's what's so weird to me, especially on like the ads matrix, right?
RVs don't.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Motorcycles.
even like products, right?
Yeah, it's just car dealers, and it's going to make the advertising very, very difficult. It will be much more sensible to enforce the rules on offering price. You know, if this is the price you're advertising, that better be the actual price, only excluding taxes and actual governmental fees.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a useful and fairly easy to follow,
Sure.
rule. Another being this whole thing about express informed consent.
Yes.
Wow. Defined sort of clinically, and then here's examples of what it isn't. Single signature. Well, you can buy a house with a single signature.
Sure can.
But if it's not, if a single signature is not enough, what is enough? And I have been asking the Federal Trade Commission since I spoke with one of the representatives at NIADA in Las Vegas in June. She spoke, I had a question. When it was all over, we met with some other people off stage, and she promised me, I will get you a meeting with the Federal Trade Commission with the people who can answer your questions. I was ecstatic. I thought that was great. Until I emailed, hey, remember that meeting? And they kind of forgot about the offer of a meeting very, very quickly. But I did get a promise that we will put someone in touch with you who will tell you where in the haystack you can find the appropriate needles.
Ugh.
Okay, I'll take what I can get. Then I went on vacation. I got back yesterday. And in my inbox was an email from a person at the Federal Trade Commission.
Hold that up in the center, more toward the center. There you go.
I don't have her permission to use her name, so I
fine.
redacted it. And she told me, with respect to the questions I had submitted, please look in the following paragraphs. And sometimes the following area was 6 single-spaced pages. But what
somewhere between page 2 and page 200.
Yeah, between page 50 and 56, it's single in there space, somewhere.
Yeah.
And I've spent the last 24 hours, with my magnifying glass looking at it. And what I will say is things are, for me at least, beginning to come a little bit more into focus. Mm-hmm. What I was very worried about, because we didn't have a good answer, was what constitutes express informed consent. And what I was directed to indicated that what they're really concerned about is not a documentation issue, more signatures, more initials, slower transaction times, lower CSI. What they're really driving at is don't pack payments, because that's the definition of lack of express informed consent.
So that would be like the cursory over largest filter. Don't pack payments. If you don't pack payments, does that solve most of it?
Well, you're getting rid of the bad act that this is supposed to prevent. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it's all of it, because you still want to document that you didn't pack payments. But certain things are going to be absolutely bright line. You may not ever give a quote that includes a product or a service that the customer did not ask for or assent to in response to an affirmative offer, which means if you're a dealer who quotes every first pencil, including a service contract and gap, before you even know if it's a cash deal or not. I mean, come on. Completely illegal, deceptive trade practice, $51,744 fine. Wow. And it could be actually worse than that, because if that's your procedure for quoting payments, you do it for everybody. So it's going to be a class action. Oh boy. It's going to be a bad practice. So this is going to be devastating. So don't include anything in your first pencil other than the car. I would say that addendum stickers are going to become problematic. I think they can still be done legally. I think they can still be done ethically. And I think they can be done in a way that really solves for why buy here, build value. Absolutely. Don't play games, build value. However, everything that's on your addendum sticker must be included in your advertised price, your offering price. Therefore, the addendum stickers can't say additional money. They can only say included or included in offering price. And that can be a powerful sales technique, but you cannot add to your advertised offered price using an addendum sticker. Dealer fee, doc fee, whatever you want to call it, dead, 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 dead. I don't see that surviving.
No matter which state you're in.
No matter which state you're in, no matter the FTC wins or NADA wins, I believe that at some point, dealer fee, doc fee is just going to have to go. You will. That's the way the rule is currently written, and that's a part of it I think will survive ultimately.
Regardless.
It's written that it has to go or has to be disclosed.
But well, the point is, you can't disclose it for the first time on a buyer's order. You can't include it on as an additional line item on an installment sale contract. That's clear. Meaning, if you charge $1,200 for a dealer fee, doc fee, whatever you call it, it has to be in the offered price. And then if you list it, you have to also zero it out because it's already included in the offered price. You cannot be in addition. And if you're going to zero it out, what's the point
of having it on there?
So dealer fee, doc fee, I think that is going to go. So if the question was,
so it would basically get the same treatment that our current addendum gets, is like,
yeah,
it has to be added at the time of offer. It's essentially, on every website, on every sheet, on every paper, included in the offering price.
It has to be included in the offering price.
Yep.
You can't have it, even if it's in boldface type at the bottom of the screen saying plus $1,200, that won't cut it.
Which is that's all handled at the state legislative and regulatory level at this point, but this would move it to the federal level essentially.
It would make it uniform from sea to shining sea.
Wow.
Yeah. We have a question here. Could this lead to more dealers going one price as part of a way to address this?
Yes. I mean, what really is going to happen here is dealers have to consider their process. How do they document things? And how do they solve for X being Y by here? The easiest way to do it right now, the lazy way, is advertise an unrealistically, deceptively low price. That's going to go away. You're not going to be able to attract people with bait and switch pricing. That can't happen. So one price is one way of doing it. Your advertised price, your offering price, it could be, depending on what market conditions are, everybody in a given market just advertises MSRP. Because the reason people aren't doing it, by the way, you're supposed to be advertising actual price right now, but it's a toothless tiger. But the reason why even ethical dealers don't advertise and include their doc fee, I've been told, Jim, nobody else does that. If I am the only guy following the current rules, I am the only guy who will not get customers. Yep. That's kind of logical, but at $51,744 per deceptively advertised price,
with teeth,
everybody,
and with
the tiger has teeth,
and every lawyer and every FTC agent kind of they're just ready. They're just ready to pounce. It's like a hunting license at this point. Yeah.
Oh boy, it's the Plaintiffs' Lawyers Full Employment Act of 2024. So ultimately, that's going to happen. So dealers, don't just worry about your process. You should, but the other half of it is, how do you build value? Why should someone buy here? Don't just invest in compliance. Invest in training. Train your salespeople. Incentivize them through their pay plan to do it ethically, honestly, and transparently, and teach them how to build value. Sales is a skill. In the last several years during COVID, when inventories were depressed and margins were through the roof, people gave up on selling. They became order takers. Sales is a skill. Invest in it. I know the rules of basketball. I did not make the Olympic team. Because the people who did know the rules of basketball, and they practiced their entire lives. If salespeople, if dealer personnel took their professions as seriously as our Olympic athletes take theirs, we wouldn't be worrying about this. We'd be out crushing it. So invest in sales training.
I can't think of a better way to land this little jaunt we had
Absolutely.
around the FTC regulation, dealer operations, serving the consumer, training your staff, and being passionate and committed to what it is that we do every day.
How about we love people more than cars?
Hey, put that on a t-shirt,
Someone
somebody.
should put that on a t-shirt somewhere.
I just saved 480 pages of paper. There's our cars. That's the new cars rule. Love people more than cars.
Yes, Jim
I
Ganther, Mosaic, thank you so much for spending some time investing your wisdom and expertise with the industry. This isn't going to be the last we hear about this from you. Looking forward to the next time already. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I hope you found this webinar informative. If you'd like to discuss the CARS rule further, or if you have any other compliance-related questions, Mosaic is here to help. You can reach me at the email address or number below. Thanks for watching.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Very, very informative stuff. And like we said, it won't be the last that we hear from Jim. You know how to get in touch with him if you want any more questions answered or you need any help at all. In the meantime, we'll be back in a couple weeks for another ASOTU Edge webinar. Thanks so much. Have a good day.